Hello, I'm Simon, and welcome back to the Bookster podcast from inside the SaaS holiday rental company Bookster, based in Edinburgh, Scotland. Follow along as Bookster discuss their inner workings and their journey to where they are today. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that these conversations are insightful, but ultimately helpful. Now, today, as always, I'm joined by Robin Morris, co-founder of Bookster. Robin, how are you today?
Good morning. I'm very well. I'm here on a school holiday, so unfortunately that means child interruptions are almost inevitable. At some point, the door will burst open and
Well,
someone will demand something.
it happens to the best of us. It's happened on BBC TV, so if it can happen to them, it can happen to you. Uh, Again, luckily, we're also joined by Adam Aaron, a support lead at Bookster. Adam, how are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Simon. Good morning to you both as well. I've locked myself in a room, and my child is at university currently, so no chance of him coming in. Although it is his room.
But if he does turn up, there's something terribly wrong.
Yeah, if he does turn up, then he's failed his exam.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Well, look, we're back again in the pod booth, as they say. Today, we are going to be covering a topic called vibe coding. Now, to me, it sounds something like out of a Bee Gees song, but to you guys, it is probably a very important part of your job. So, does one of you like to kick off and tell me and the listener exactly what vibe coding is?
Um, okay, I'll kick off and say what I think it is, or what I know it to be, I suppose, maybe. And then Adam can interrupt or come in on some stuff that our clients are doing as well. So, I mean, fundamentally, what it is using AI, using these LLM models, Gemini, Claude. There are lots of tools out there that you can use to write applications or write software that can help you function. Now, we internally as Bookster, we sort of use it a little bit. We've used some tools that are essentially what you might think of as vibe coding, as in that's the only thing. The only way that you're creating the code is by typing in prompts to an AI chatbot, basically. You're saying, "Oh, create me this, create that, change this, change that," and you're doing it just through the chat interface. That really is vibe coding, where you're not really going in and actually changing the code much yourself, particularly. So I think that maybe outlines what it is, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose I would define it as coding in plain English, or whatever language you natively speak, and the technology translating it into uh, an actual coding language. So you don't necessarily know how to read the code even. You're more interested in the result. So it's very much a back and forth between you and a computer or prompt. I suppose the computer's probably sitting somewhere else ultimately. And it's yes, a very iterative thing. So you sort of start with something and it does maybe a bit of what you want, and you're just constantly adjusting it just by updating instructions in plain language rather than a programming language.
Okay, no, that's clear, I think, in my mind. So thank you for that. How does it then?
While
How do you
listening
use
to
it
the
at the
Bee Gees.
moment? Sorry, what was that, Adam?
So you do all that while listening to the Bee Gees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With your flares. But so yeah, so how does Bookster use this then at the moment with your clients or internally? How does it work?
I would say we don't use it so much for the core product, but from our clients' point of view, they are now we're starting to get instances of where you got clients you wouldn't expect saying, "Can you give me some information about your API?" And an API, for people who don't know, is a way of communicating with Bookster in with a programming language, essentially. So you're asking it for data. It's not you wouldn't really go on the API as a person and query it for data. A script or a program would do that. So they're getting vibe coding to do that. And it's people we're generally finding that have some technical know-how but are not programmers themselves. So they're just technically minded, maybe. I would say that's the people that are starting to do it, but I would say as time goes on, we will likely get more and more people. As this becomes more of a thing that everybody's doing potentially, it's going to get more and more people with less technical know-how asking to do this similar things.
So what are people doing then when they ask you for this API? What are they then going on to do with it?
Usually, I would say they're building their own dashboard. Is the most common use case so far. So they're taking maybe. So we've created like an arrivals report, and that shows things in an opinionated way of what we consider important and what should be presented to the person dealing with arrivals. That may not suit everybody, so they may want to customize that. Whereas in Bookster, we don't offer a customized view as such. They may want to just build their own. So they'll take the data from our API, so all the the bookings, etc., and structure that however they see fit. And they will generally do that through some sort of vibe coding interface, and it will create their own dashboard to do whatever they want.
So then, does that worry you guys at Bookster that people are going off and doing their own sort of adaptations of what you're providing?
Not in the slightest. From the point of view of they're getting something they need, we're providing the data they need. It's not like they're not using Bookster; they're just using it in a different way.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's not. No, I would say definitely not worrying. It's interesting, exciting. It's good that people can use the data out of Bookster or use it in a different way, and it might solve a problem that that we can't solve for them potentially, or they can see things in their data that maybe we haven't been able to see or exposed to them. Ultimately, Bookster is kind of one. Obviously there's lots of different views and things, but we can't make it infinitely flexible. So if you wanted to get the data out and do certain things or manipulate the data in a certain way, if you're technically capable, then that's great, brilliant that you can do it. And I think what vibe coding or what this, essentially a lot of these AI tools are allowing is the bar to be lowered significantly for people to be able to do that. Whereas previously, you would need to be a developer. You would need to understand, JavaScript or PHP or Java or whatever language you were, or whatever language you were using. Whereas now you can use these tools to basically, if you've got a basic understanding of the AIs and the data that's coming out of them, then you can, produce something or write something yourself potentially that gets you something or displays something in an interesting way for you or for your cleaners or for your owners or for whoever someone in your team. So I think at the moment it is kind of definitely they're sort of side projects really. Rather than anything else, but it's definitely something that's happening now that previously the people that asked about our API were developers rather than our sort of more regular users, and it's now more regular users, as Adam says, with a sort of technical bent, I suppose, that are now using the API and using these vibe coding tools.
And does this, I mean, you say you're happy for people to do it, but does it give you ultimately any more work? Do things go wrong from the client's point of view and they then come back to you and say, well, can you help fix this? Or
sometimes what we've found, like maybe they don't know like where. So an API has sort of endpoints of where you can access certain data. So if you want booking data, you would go to the bookings endpoint. If you want property data, you would go to the properties endpoint. So they may expect the data to be in one place and it's in another. So they'll get questions like that, like how do I access this data? The other thing we've found is it's very quick to write, some sort of script or program with these tools, but it's not necessarily efficient. As in, the program itself is not necessarily efficient. So what we have found on occasion is, for example, it's the client will say, get me all the information on my bookings that have come in the past 2 weeks, and it will get all the bookings for all time, and it will do that every 30 seconds. So what we end up with is our API or our servers getting hammered with requests when all this user wants to know is about their latest 2 weeks of bookings once a day, but they're asking it, or maybe they haven't asked it to do it every 30 seconds, but the program is just assuming it needs to be done every 30 seconds. And because they are not looking through the actual code, they don't know that it's done this. So they're assuming it's working, whereas our resources are getting hammered, and we need to, politely say, "Can you adjust your code so that it's, we can kind of see what you're trying to do here? Maybe suggest a prompt to get them to adjust their code so it's a bit more efficient." We've had a couple of occasions of that, certainly. In terms of more resources not resources for time resources, I wouldn't say it's a huge time sink in the interface they are interacting with is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, so it's doing a lot of the figuring out of what they need to do and what sort of questions they need to ask. So I'd say that side of things is kind of taking care of itself, but we certainly get, where they've hit a roadblock of some sort, we'll get requests of, is there an API for this, or I'm trying to get this data, what would you suggest where would you suggest I look? So there's a lot of that sort of or a lot more of those sorts of questions.
So it is having an impact on Bookster then?
I would say maybe, Robin's probably got more to add to this, but I would say it's maybe altering our direction a little bit in terms of what we choose to open up to our clients, as far as, the previously, most of the data you would want would be within Bookster itself. You would log into Bookster, and we describe the data in various views depending on what task you're doing. Whereas now they might not be logging into Bookster at all, but they're just accessing the data that's within it and the structure that's within it. So it may alter our decisions of how we expose that, in certain ways, and influence us, in far as the direction of the product goes. But I don't. But I think Robin's probably better placed ultimately to answer that, though.
Yeah, I think it'll probably change. Some of our priorities will be to improve our APIs, so we're more likely to be doing that, I suppose, as opposed to writing other interfaces. But obviously, it's just more a case of prioritization. But because we're getting more people asking about the API, I suppose, than we did before, we maybe need to pay more attention to it and make sure it's up to date and yeah, that, there are improvements we can make there that perhaps we might not have done. So it will change our priorities a little bit. And yeah, I suppose for support, it also means that you are, supporting an API, which is completely different to supporting a user interface. So, and it's potentially a little bit more, well, it can be more difficult because people are doing things you can't see what they're actually doing or what they're trying to do. So yeah, trying to support someone's use of it is quite difficult too. But no, I think that's the only thing that changes is our priorities of things that we do will maybe be skewed a bit more towards the API than it would have been before.
I would also say that the level of people doing it right now, as we mentioned before, they're probably slightly more technical minded than I think what's going to happen in maybe the not too distant future is you're going to get people that are less and less technically minded and will just be like, oh, an LLM can do this. I'll just ask it to do it, and it's just a one-liner, and we'll get more of that, which possibly will be a bit more difficult to support. But I suspect that's not just going to be our problem. I suspect that's going to be, throughout various industries are going to be running into that at some point very soon, and hopefully the technology will keep up.
Does it inspire you, or have you had conversations about if a client has asked for something different than you're already providing through this? I mean, do you then sit down and go, well, maybe we should actually just natively provide this option for people? Has that sort of invaded your conversations?
Sometimes I mean, certainly the first time I saw it, I was pretty wowed by this has just been built in like a weekend sort of thing, and I think what the person had done was they'd set up a custom messaging system to based on various things around a booking, of sending a custom message based on booking data, and they just click a button, it fills it in, and we have done similar tools. I'm not sure if it's as a result of that so much as we've done it anyway, but this is very specific to their needs. And I was more inspired that that's actually really cool that they've been able to do that. So they've taken us as a starting point and sort of jumped off from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will certainly there'll be back and forth certainly as far as it will probably influence things we build as people come up with more heads means more ideas obviously. Some of those will be good, some of those will not be good, and I think the ones that are good, I think certainly it's certainly only a good thing to borrow from that to improve our product. I don't know that it would directly influence it beyond that, but I'd certainly think there would be feedback as a result of that would give us ideas of where to take Bookster.
And have you had any feedback from clients that something's just gone horribly wrong? They've tried to do something and it's not worked, and they need you to fix it, for example?
Not horribly wrong.
Good.
Yeah, it's more just the I'm trying to build this. I'm not getting the right data. It's more just you just got to look here instead. It's I wouldn't say horribly wrong. I haven't had any disasters. I haven't had anyone. No one's died yet. But and hopefully no one will die as a result of vibe coding. I don't think it's that type of activity, but.
So is there? So I mean, for me, who knows nothing about coding in any way, if I was a client of yours, could I go on try and do my own thing and then mess up the interaction between the Bookster and what I'm trying to do? I mean, is there a way to
I think the
really
worst
affect
you would
that? Or,
do. I think the worst you would do is it just wouldn't work. I don't think
right.
it would. I don't think it would. Expose any government secrets or anything like that.
So I won't get arrested again.
You not again, no.
Robin, what you're thinking? What's the next 12 months for Bookster then, with all this AI stuff going on?
Well, I've got a small child here pestering me at the moment, so that's the, the one thing I'm thinking about right now. Ben,
Ask AI to look after them.
AI, can you look after Ben and tell him to go back to his room? Right.
Okay.
So I think as Adam says, like these tools that our clients are writing, they tend to be, reports and things, or like they're not quite so core things that they're doing, kind of thing, and I suppose what they want to avoid, or what we want to make sure that they don't fall into the trap, is of something that can be horrendously bad for them. So they maybe use the API to, cancel bookings or something when they don't intend to, or something like that. That's could be quite disastrous for them. I mean, that hasn't happened yet, but that's the kind of thing that they're not at the moment. People are usually using it for reporting and saying, oh, I can produce these graphs or insights, or when are people arriving or when are people departing, etc. So yeah, that's at the moment it's not too bad. So, but in terms of what we do next, it's essentially trying to you probably develop our APIs further so that they are easier to use, easier to understand. They can get more information out, or can update Bookster in a way that's logical and rational and easy, etc. And they can. So I suspect that's where it will affect us in terms of supporting clients' use of it. But also, yeah, we can draw inspiration from the types of things that they build as well, I think, and it's worth keeping an eye on them and trying to understand why they did it, and were they frustrated with Bookster and that's why they did it, or was it more of a kind of inspiration thing? So they're not frustrated; they just kind of want to create something themselves. So yeah, it's when they're frustrated with what we can do, then we need to make sure that we're not. That maybe we should be looking to alter the core product, I suppose, so that it does reflect their requirements. So yeah.
So, I mean, ultimately, then, in I guess a couple of sentences, because we're getting towards our sort of end of time. AI, then, for you, is it a good thing? Is it helpful? I mean, for your clients, are you happy? A couple of sentences.
I think what it can do is make we make a product for, I mean, not the general public, but obviously it's a core audience. What this technology can do is make that product highly individualized for each person, and I think that's a good thing. I think that can only be a good thing. Can they break it? Yeah, but it's not. It's going to break the, the bit between them and their clients, not between them and us, if that makes sense. Um, I think going forward, these tools are going to make a lot of software do that. And anything where we are almost providing a generalized tool set, and then you can take that and customize it to your own needs as you see fit. So it's empowering, I would say, is a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what you obviously there are some instances in which case someone can vibe. There might well be levels of competence where they can vibe code all sorts of things that Bookster is currently doing, and maybe sort of replace a lot of it. Maybe I don't know, but there is the kind of maintenance and uptime and making sure that it's available for themselves, and that it's not got errors, or it's not doing things in a way that they didn't expect. And if they've got a team who's supporting their team on using it, so there's a whole lot of reasons why you still would potentially want something like Bookster, or a kind of something where you're not having to worry about all the things that we have to worry about, because we worry about it for lots of people. So therefore, we can handle that Whereas if you just decided to vibe code some tool yourself internally, then suddenly all those burdens are fall on yourself, which might be fine. You might be happy with that. The upside being it is exactly, or it looks exactly what you want, and etc. And you can change it, and you can, so there are some distinct upsides, and so people might, there's certainly clients or people who are competent enough or who are willing to take on that responsibility, etc. That's great. But for a lot of people, it will, I think, mainly the main thing it will be is a kind of, to extend or to see data in a different way, or to build a sort of more temporary tool that they see something, they use it for a few months, and then they, a bit like a spreadsheet or something, they then forget about it or whatever. So I think ultimately it's mainly positive for us, really, and yeah, I'm certainly not too concerned about people just building their own. Like, there's still going to be a real strong requirement for us to provide a service that works for them.
Good. Okay, so ultimately, currently positive. We'll come back in 12 months and see if that changes.
Yeah.
No, but I mean that's it's interesting, and this episode's been focused on sort of the client side of it. Really, maybe what we should do is come back and do another episode on how sort of AI works within Bookster itself, and how you guys ultimately use that. So maybe it's a two-part episode. Maybe, who knows? But for now, let's say thank you very much to the listeners for listening. Adam, thank you for your time again this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Nice to see you. And Robin, thank you again for coming on as well.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
And we shall be back shortly with another episode. Until then, thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your days, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.